Okay. Hello, my name is Christopher Zepeda. I'm here with Paulina Nunez, a Fordham student. And please introduce yourself, Paulina.
Hi, Chris. Actually, a Fordham graduate. I am graduating from Fordham University's Graduate School of Social Service. I will be having my master's degree in social work. I also have interned for Planned Parenthood as a public affairs intern for about 3 months. I also have experience working in a law clinic in a interdisciplinary collaborative setting with lawyers and being supervised by professors at Fordham University's law school this past year. So yeah, I'm also very interested in this topic. I think most women are, and so it's definitely very important. And thank you for covering.
No problem. Thank you for actually coming through to this interview. So, our first question, what is your opinion? How would your opinion affect on federal law being overturned, and what new precedents would this existing law or constitutional right be affected by this?
Right. So I think I want to say, like, on a personal level, it has to do with the right to choose. I think as women, historically, we haven't had that. Well, I know that women really haven't had right to choose and make decisions about our own bodies, or have like certain autonomy. As a professional, as a social worker, I know that the populations or the clients that I work with and will be working with, mainly women, will be severely affected by the overturning of Roe versus Wade. It's a monumental legal legal case that has really allowed women the right to make decisions about their lives and be able to have a sense of mobility when it comes to decisions that are affecting their lives and also the lives of their children. I think people don't necessarily think about exactly what it is to be a mother or to be a parent, and what is needed, right? It's not just about, having a child, or being pregnant. It's also about being able to financially provide for your child. And as a social worker, I think that it's really necessary that we provide like supports and resources to women, especially those that become pregnant, because if they don't have the resources and they're struggling, then the child's life will be affected as well. So yeah.
No,
Yeah.
couldn't answer it better than myself. So, what do you think of the idea of Chuck Schumer's comments on both Democrats and Republicans in regarding calling more Democrats to vote against, you know, MAGA Republicans or Make America Great Again Republicans?
Yeah, I think like the an issue that comes up a lot in conversation is just kind of like the polarizing of people's rights. So like this happens to be one of those things where it's really like a political, people take like political sides and like assign, like you must support this or you must be against this because you identify as a Republican, or a Democrat, right? But like I think the piece that's lacking is like people's empathy towards other people, and specifically like women or people that have uteruses. And I say that because people aren't really, like, specifically people that aren't in support of Roe versus Wade aren't really considering um just how much influence this would have, and not just people that are becoming pregnant, or women specifically, but like also families that are planning, because it's the ramification of like the change in Roe versus Wade, would affect access to birth control, contraception, and would also affect access not just, to the right to get an abortion, but like the right to like consult your doctor about a life-changing decision. And so yeah, I think like the polarizing of the topic of like right to an abortion or women's reproductive rights. It's just like very damaging on so many levels. And I can't stress that enough. Like it is like almost salacious coverage of news and like politicians saying like, you have to do this or you have to vote this way because of this reason. And the reality is that like, yes, it's important to advocate on behalf of your constituents, but I think it's more important to like empathize with the people that are actually going to be affected if Roe versus Wade gets overturned.
Well, you got a point there because a lot of times the government's never been very like back and forth with, and especially with political games going up and going in different directions.
Yeah.
So to follow that up, what do you feel about uh, Republican Senator Mitch McConnell's comments saying that the legislature goes way beyond codifying the status quo, and it would roll back many existing laws in regards to Roe v. Wade?
I think like his point is valid. I mean, like I just previously stated, it's not just going to affect women and people that have uteruses. It's also going to affect families and decision making when it comes to planning families. I think we're in this area or like a point in American history where we're kind of like at a crossroads as to like where do we see our country going? Are we going to be a first world country and allow people the privilege of making decisions about their bodies? Or are we going to like digress 50, go backwards 50 years and like begin telling women and people how to live and like what to, make decisions over their bodies. And like I always see this thing about Republican what is it? Okay, sorry. I missed my point. But like I always see this thing about how like people that are making decisions for women's bodies are actually not women. They're men who have never experienced being pregnant or having a child. And so I think that's really a really valid point. Like, who are the people that are representing women? Are they people that actually understand the concept of like family planning or do they have children themselves? Do they have daughters? Things of that sort. But I can go on like a rant forever on that.
It's all good. It's all good. And just to speaking on someone who's very much involved in that case, we'll talk about Supreme Justice Samuel Alito's claims of the original decision of Roe v. Wade case as an exceptionally weak and has damaging consequences. What do you feel about those comments?
Um, yeah, I think the damaging consequences part I can get behind. I think you know, when we're as the public, we're like consuming a lot of media coverage and a lot of like different opinions, which is great. I think most people should like practice media literacy, but like when it comes to understanding the damaging effects, I think like we're not really like being covered exactly what these damaging effects would be. And I think that is like a point that needs to be made, like
Okay.
with our leaders and like with politicians and things of that sort.
Well, you couldn't make it any better with that, with those comments you just reiterated. And let me ask you this: why did you decide to join the Planned Parenthood organization, and what really is their mission statement?
Right. Yeah, Planned Parenthood is a great organization. I think my choice to intern with them began because I was really moved and felt led to volunteer for them and work for them for a bit because of actually Judge Kavanaugh being being selected by our former President Trump. And I did a speech on Planned Parenthood and learned so much about the organization that I was like, I'm just going to apply to be a summer intern. And that's how I got involved with Planned Parenthood. But my point is that I think like it's a misrepresented in the media. I think Planned Parenthood, yes, they do provide abortion, abortions for people, but they also provide so much other things, like so many other health related services, family planning, reproductive health services, STI scans, and like different treatments. They really are an organization that just does not get enough credit. And the credit that they do get tends to be a little bit on the negative side, unfortunately. And they're also huge advocates, you know, for women's rights. They provide like care for people that are, you know, low socioeconomic, poor, Black, Hispanic, LGBTQ plus. So I think their organization is just wonderful. And they do a lot, you know, like they really do. I think some things that I got, like one specific statistic was that like only 3% of their services are actually abortions. And I think that's telling that they just are known for, you know, being providers that, you know, can do this procedure, but I think it's telling that like only 3% of their procedures is abortions. In reality, like, so that means that 97% of their other services are related to something else. And so, yeah.
That actually opened my mind under, because I never really understood it prior to, like I've heard of it, but I never really understood what they were.
Mhm.
I mean, that's news to me, and I appreciate that. And finally, with the public followings and eyes glued to the midterm elections,
Mhm.
what do you feel will be significant about this decision that might happen?
Well, wow. Yeah, no, I have very interesting views about that, only because I think that Democratic leadership tends to be like very divisive. And like, I mean, in the sense that like they'll have the ability to pass certain laws and won't do it, like codifying abortion rights in the United States. They've had the ability to make it happen in the past, you know, and they haven't. And so like I think, you know, midterm elections is something that these politicians really put so much effort into, and they pour money into it, and people that support them pour money into their campaigns so that they stay in office. And so like I think, unfortunately, this topic will be used by politicians on both sides, you know, like for example, like it seems as, you know, Republicans will run on their campaign and be like, okay, I'm pro-life, and so I'm going to run on this campaign, and if you vote for me, I'm going to stand up for our conservative values. And then the Democrats are going to vote, I mean, they're going to run this campaign and they're going to say like, okay, I'm a Democrat and like I support women's rights, and so if you vote for me, I'm going to do my best to try to protect the rights of women. And so like I think they're definitely gonna run on these campaigns and like try to get votes in this way. But like I've been saying since the beginning of our interview, I think like there's just like a general lack of empathy from people and also the people that represent us, and like almost like politicians losing touch of reality. I think I'm very fortunate because I have an educational background in social work, and so I'm like, you know, I'm like really on the front lines of how these policies are affecting everyday lives. Um, and so like a seasoned politician, like for example, Chuck Schumer, you know, he's not working with people on everyday basis. He's not working with like a single mom that has two kids, one of my clients who has two kids and is, you know, like imagine becomes pregnant, doesn't know what to do, and is also like receiving government benefits and experiencing mental health issues. And so like the complexity of people and their lived experiences are so vast and multifaceted that like it's really difficult to just like pick one side, you know, or like kind of like display this person and humanize them so that people will empathize with them when our politicians have not been able to do that for so long. And they've been in office for like X amount of years and have lost the ability to empathize with their constituents. So that's how I feel about that.
No, that's like a lovely piece. It's great that you have this sort of mindset about this idea, this whole sort of what this government is. Because a lot, like you said, and a lot of people don't have empathy. They don't really just, and most of those people who don't have empathy, unfortunately, are in charge of this sort of running the ship. So it's very kind of sad to kind of hear that kind of comments. And it's, I
Yeah.
mean, what can you do though? I mean, all we can do is just hope for the best and always vote and do whatever we can. So,
Right.
so I appreciate the time, Paulina. Really do. Hope everything goes well. And thank you. My name is Christopher, signing off.
Thank you, Chris. Have a